Greetings, Dungeon Masters and Dice Goblins. Today I want to talk about something that helped make my professional games successful, and that is also something that the Dungeon Master's Guide recommends for your adventure, and that is a good villain. I want to talk a little bit less about the art and a little bit more about the craft, focusing on what does your adventure, what does your game need, and finding how you are going to fulfill that need. I'm going to do this by looking at one particular villain that I made and got to use on multiple campaigns, and that is Drigo the Hunter Prince. Now, how to watch this video, you might take away little bits and pieces here and there of things that, I like this part that Jackson said, not so jazzed about this, so let me apply this question and his answer to my game. That's totally fine. It is also fine if you just take my villain and his villainous plot completely and use it in your own game. I know for some of y'all on the internet, that goes without saying, but just in case you are a very polite person, and that's not a flaw at all, I don't think, I am giving you permission. Steal everything here. It took me lots of tries and lots of bad to middling villains to get around to this guy, which really worked. And honestly, I didn't realize how well he worked until a few of my players, after the campaign was over, said, wow, this villain was actually incredible, and we did not see the turn coming. He was a tough fight, and he was very memorable. So, shall we talk about Drigo and how I made him? The first question I asked myself is, what does my adventure need? Well, for this local game store, I needed to get the people that were coming in to try out this professional campaign experience invested. This is not too unsimilar to pitching a pilot for a TV show. You have to have something that hooks people in that first episode in order to get them to keep showing up, and in my case, keep paying to keep showing up and playing D&D. So I needed something right off the bat to get my players hooked, invested, and coming back. And I said, what if I can pull off a big twist? Now, at this time, this was pre-season 8 Game of Thrones. I was very inspired by this, and I thought, the turn of that show was actually, I think, the Red Wedding. Yes, Ned dying was a big deal. Should I say spoilers for Game of Thrones? I don't think I have to. Did you know that people die, especially Starks in Game of Thrones? Moving on, I want something big, like the Red Wedding, that makes people shocked and makes them ready, invested in the story to see these villains put down. And in order to do that, I am going to need my Tywin Lannister. Which, by the way, it's okay to just straight up steal Tywin Lannister. That is a great, noble villain to have in your campaign. But my guy is a little different. I knew that if I came on and I played a British domineering villain like a commander on a Imperial Star Wars cruiser, my players would immediately know that's the bad guy. No. So I want to trick them. I want to build a villain that they can trust. I want to have red flags there. I want them to be able to roll insight and perception to realize that this dude may be up to something, but I want him to make an evil decision. This was another distinction. I didn't necessarily want to make an evil character. I wanted to make someone that is making an evil choice, an evil action that is going to define them and is going to define the way the party goes after them. So I need to make someone who is going to catch people in this Red Wedding. He needs to be trusted by the players. How do I do that? I know what I need to do. I've established my vision. How am I going to execute it? I need to make somebody that the characters can trust. Well, this is a first level adventure. These are underling adventurers who are just starting out, and I start with a simple premise. I say there's an evil dragon in the land. We know that she has been commanding kobolds to go out and raid villages. We know that she is only going to grow stronger, and we need to stop her now. This is something that doesn't seem too unattainable for these first level adventurers to accomplish on their own. But just in case, I did ask them a question in episode 1. I said, who is your mentor? Who is the Obi-Wan to your Luke? And that'll get important later on in a way that I imagine already a few villainous DMs out there know exactly where I'm going with this. But I want to say, here's your first level adventure. They are going to go slay a dragon, but the person who is rounding up people, who is tacking this up on the quest board, is Drigo, the Hunter Prince. A man who is not a first level adventurer. He has gone far and beyond. He is in those upper tiers of play. You'll notice that I'm playing around with the metagame expectations here. I know that the players signing up for this professional tier game have probably already played D&D before or have seen Critical Role before. We're deep into that on our real world timeline by now. So they know what the difference is between like a first level and like a 10th level adventure. So I want to establish that this guy, Drigo, is one of them. Now, he is not a DMPC. I want to make clear. Drigo is still the villain, but I wouldn't be surprised if I had a few players in session 1 that were saying, oh, is Jackson just going to play this guy? What I did was I said, okay, everybody is invited to Drigo's feast. He's going to have a feast at his stronghold of fortune, saying, everybody come on in. We're going to round up all the excellent people, the hunters, the adventurers, the warlords in the area. I'm going to round them up, me, Drigo the Hunter Prince, and say, let's go slay this dragon. And some of those people just happen to bring along their sidekicks and minions, right? That's who our party is. So the party is lagging behind. Some of their mentors said, oh, why don't y'all kind of patrol, see if you can find any of these kobolds that we know the evil dragon is commanding. That'll be a good thing for you. And again, I'm playing with metagame expectations. Fighting a bunch of kobolds is something that a party can do. So they're like, oh, sure, this is our intro adventure. This is like killing rats in the basement, but we get a little more exploration along with it. So as they're out and about finding kobolds, they happen upon a ruined castle. There happens to be some skeletons in it, which reveals that this dragon has powers over life and death. I'm not going to get so far into the dragon right now, but what's important is the dragon is going to show up, and the first level characters are rightly going to be horrified. And then, on a flying carpet, in comes Drigo. Drigo, along with these first level adventurers, are enough to kind of make the dragon say, maybe not today, and fly away. But maybe not before the dragon was able to let out her breath one time, show what she was made of, get a few looks in, maybe knock somebody in the party unconscious, just for good measure, to show them she is a threat. This is what you are signing up to fight. This is why it's important that we got together all of these, higher level, if you will, experienced travelers and hunters. Not only does Drigo help scare away the dragon, he's going to go around. He always carries potions on them. He's helping with their wounds. He's congratulating them on what they were able to do, beating up the kobolds and the skeletons. They did good. He's going to take them over to a nice little cave where they can have a long rest before going to his party in the morning. This is all good. The party, they're first meeting each other for the first time at the same time that they are meeting Drigo for the first time. Drigo is an entertainer. In fact, I used the stock entertainer picture from the player's handbook just to drive home this is someone familiar to you. Even though you first met him, you can immediately trust him. He's straight out of the book. He's here to help. He has rounded up everybody to say, we have to stop this evil. And metagame, it all sounds like the perfect normal setup for a safe, middling adventure. No one's going to suspect a thing. To my surprise, because anytime as a dungeon master you say, oh, they're not going to figure this out, someone figures this out, no one ever really called me out on this. I must have had 30 people meet Drigo, and none of them within the first session said, this guy is bad news. They rolled insight checks on him. They checked him out, but every time I answered their questions, honestly, they were like, this guy is maybe a little cocky, maybe a little arrogant. He runs around calling himself the Hunter Prince, but that seems to be backed up. The people of the countryside seem to trust him. My mentor, who answered his summons to come slay a dragon, seems to trust him. He just saved us from a dragon. He's got 3 good check marks in his favor, so even though he might be a little cocky, and he's stronger than us, I don't think that's any reason we shouldn't trust him. So they take a long rest that night, with Drigo, pulling out a lute and saying, why don't I regale you with the time I took on 2 trolls at once? And nothing happens. They wake up. Drigo personally walks them over to his stronghold of fortune, where their mentors have already arrived. And Drigo, whenever he talks about, oh, where have you all been, my little younglings? Drigo says they saw the dragon. They can attest to her might better than I can. Hear them, your apprentices. They were brave. But even when I was able to help them, we would not have been enough to take on the dragon. That is why this is so important. So I'm just laying it on at this point, and usually by now, no one is asking me for insight rolls on Drigo. This is their boy. He has helped them out. He could have robbed them or stabbed them over their long rest. If there was a time to betray them in episode 1, it would have been right now. So now we are to the part where Drigo says, all right, everybody come on into the feast hall. I have wonderful food out from all of my hunts. I have some of my assistants here. They will serve you. Please make yourself at home. We will get to the business of figuring out how and if we will hunt this dragon later. And I even have some special kegs of the most glorious mead available, and we will crack those at the end when we announce, yes, we are going to slay the dragon. Please, my stronghold of fortune that I have amassed over, reaching, let's say, 11th level and getting all the gold coins that an adventurer at that level would get, this is what I have bought for myself. Please enjoy it.
Here we are. We have our setup. Drigo has invited bold adventurers, experienced hunters out to his stronghold of fortune to say, will you come with me and fight this dragon? Is this something that we need to fight? He's let them feast. He's let them drink. He has not yet popped open the very, very fine mead that is only going to be for when they say, yes, we're the ones who are going to go slay the dragon. He stands up and he says, okay, this dragon is a danger. Some of you have heard from your young apprentices, even, that the dragon is formidable. Her kobolds and her undead will wreak havoc across the countryside if we are not able to stop her. So I will ask you plainly, who will follow me? Who will go and slay this dragon? Who intends to wipe her from this land before she can grow to be a threat to the entire world, our entire realm? And at this point, as a DM, I want to wait until the players are the ones that say, "Yes, Drigo, we're going to go with you. Let's slay this dragon." And naturally, in every game I had, there was always one player that said, "Drigo, I'm still not convinced. I really think we should talk to this dragon. She has a breath that gives life. What if that can be used for good? She's still young. Let's talk to her." And Drigo would say, "Aye, but do you intend to go with me? Do you intend to stop her from her current path?" And they would say, "Aye, I do intend to do that, so I will go with you, Drigo." And naturally, the mentors, the more experienced hunters and warlords in the room would stand up and say, "Aye, if my apprentice is in, I'll go along." "Oh, I don't know about all this talk, but I'll go with you, Drigo. I'll be the first one to put an axe in her wing." And I wait until each person in that room stands up and says, "Yes, I will go with you. I intend to stop the dragon." Because that is when Drigo is going to say the trigger word to activate the 10 dragon statues around the room. Their mouths open. A red arrow streaks out, seeking the adventurers in the room by name. In a matter of seconds, each one of these warlords, assassins, hunters, all are killed, leaving behind only the adventurers who did not have a name and a reputation. That's how we have our party pitted against Drigo. This is where I ended the first session. The second session starts with Drigo's minion locking the doors, and Drigo, as we roll initiative, stepping away, popping the corks on that special mead as oil begins to fill the room, and he flips a match from his tinderbox. The deed is done. There's no saving the mentors. Drigo looks back at his burning stronghold as the room begins to fill with smoke, as the party begins to make insignificant actions against this seasoned trainer. He proves that the Hunter Prince is not just a name. He is strong, and they are weak, far from him. This lets me, as the DM, play around for a few rounds with these now second-level adventurers, because I gave them a level up for meeting the dragon and talking to Drigo. Really nice of Drigo to save them long enough to get them a level up. Really makes them want to trust him. I'm able to give Drigo a few rounds to monologue. He says, "I'm sorry. You weren't meant to be here. Your masters should not have brought you. They should have left you at home. You would have received the letter that the dragon was too strong, that I failed. And it wouldn't be far from the truth. For all the beasts I have tamed in the land, all the evils I have slain, when I met this dragon and tried to nip her in the bud, I did fail. If I would not be able to slay her, who then would? I'm sorry to say that when the dragon offered me life in exchange for the deaths in this room, the deaths of all who would stand up and swear that they would stop her ambition, I took the deal, young travelers. But I will not kill you. No. I do not have it in my heart." And he will leave the room, that he is trapped and locked up exactly the way that he needs to. Shutting the door behind him, trapping the players in a smoke-filled, burning room with all locked doors and the dead corpses of those they know are their betters. Now, Drigo is arrogant, so he has a secret door hidden somewhere on his stronghold that is going to naturally get the adventurers to leave this place because we have to have this story continue. But this very much was a threat, and I did have, on multiple occasions, these second-level players dragging out unconscious party members, putting out the flames, and to, well, add injury to injury, go ahead and say you have burn scars on your leg. You have a poison mark on your shoulder from where Drigo threw one of his poison darts at you. You have a physical mark on your character that shows how Drigo could have killed them, and you have your dead mentor back there in that room who died only because they agreed that they had to stop this dragon, the dragon that Drigo has made clear he has sworn loyalty to. Drigo is on his way to deliver news to the dragon at what has happened here, and you can track him, you can head him off. This is the start of the real adventure. Let's talk about the stats and how I built Drigo. Again, I had to ask myself, what do I want from this villain? What is the best thing for my game? Well, I know that he has to be able to pull off this scheme at the start. I knew that in one round I wanted him to be able to pop the corks, light a match, and toss it on the fire. So, we need to do that. We also know that at some point I do want the party to be able to fight Drigo, and I wanted him to stand a chance as a solo combatant, which means we need action economy. Finally, I wanted the kind of, what's it called? I wanted the ludonarrative fidelity that this guy is an adventurer like you. So, typically, I tell first-time DMs, if you're making a villain, don't make them like they're a player character. Monsters and player characters are supposed to have different rules in how they run. Don't make a DM PC. Knowing that this was a tightrope I was going to have to walk, I broke that rule and I made Drigo as a PC. I even used a character sheet, which I never do for my villains. I used standard array. I made him a human. I gave him the mobile feat as a swashbuckler rogue with the gladiator background. Everything worked in here. Even when it came down to his personality traits, ideals, bonds, and flaws, I used these pieces that were straight out of the player handbook just to keep hammering home, this is someone like you. This is what your adventurer could turn into if they make wrong choices. And that is ultimately what Drigo is. He was a hero. He did protect lots of people around the countryside. He was very good at what he did, but when faced with defeat, when faced with death, the end to his fortune and fame, he decided, no, I want to keep going, even if it means I will kill other people trying to do the good that I was doing. We have a guy with 18 armor class, 40 speed, plus 6 on initiative, which is pretty darn good. We have a hit point maximum of 70. I don't like drawn out fights. By the time the party fights Drigo, they might be 3rd or 4th level, although depending on the party and the campaign, I was able to have Drigo running away from the party, setting up traps occasionally, running in and having a scuffle with them before a final epic showdown. This is something you don't want to overplay. I know you've probably played a video game where you fight a boss one too many times and they keep running away, so avoid that, but placed out just nicely, having Drigo recruit some people to say, there are people who are after me, and all I'm trying to do is kill the dragon after she set fire to my stronghold of fortune with all those heroes inside. Isn't that sad and terrible? How wonderful and lucky it is that I made it out. Anyway, you get the idea. This is a rogue. This is someone who is slippery. And I actually like, again, playing around with metagame, that the players know what Drigo can do. They know that cunning action exists. They know that the mobile feat exists, so that as he starts to do these things, they start figuring out the rules of how Drigo works and how they can fight him and how they can win. This is good. This is not a terrible thing if your players know the rules of how your villain works. It can make the fight a lot more exciting, a lot more dynamic. Dynamic is something that I really want for this dude, so I know that cunning action is going to give me a whole lot of play. I know that features like mobile, fancy footwork, rakish audacity is going to make it easy for Drigo to come in, stab somebody with a magic rapier, and scoot. Get out of the way, run for cover. By the way, he has a magic rapier, he has magic armor, he has potions of greater healing, he has a potion of invisibility or 2 or 3, he has poison on his darts, he has a magical hand crossbow, he has a carpet of flying, he has all the things that you would think your players would have by the time they reach this level. This is good because it makes sense that Drigo would have these things, and when you have a villain that is using items like this, it is a giant flag to say, hey, here's some items you can pick up. That's good. Depending on the party I was playing with, if I knew that they were a little higher tier play, that they were really experienced players, I would sometimes give Drigo a ring of freedom of movement, just to make sure that it was very hard to lock him down to capture him. The one feature that I gave him to establish this is not just a player character, this is not my DMPAC, he is a villain, is I did give him a legendary action, just one legendary action. At the end of a player's turn, he would use this feature called Prince's Pockets. I don't like writing out page-long, multiple paragraph abilities for my monsters, so all I gave Drigo for Prince's Pockets is, as a legendary action, once each round, Drigo may use a potion or throw a poisoned dart. Pretty simple build, doesn't have a lot going on. This really relies on you as the DM being very in the moment and using your tactics well to keep Drigo mobile. To remember that he's doesn't necessarily need to kill these party members in this scenario. He needs to outrun them and get to the dragon. Because if he can get to the dragon and they can fight together, there's no hope for the party. And the party already knows this because in our setup, in our first session, they saw Drigo and the dragon fight. Every party was able to defeat Drigo, even the ones that took 2 tries. And I just want to make a shout out. There were 2 parties of the 5 or 6 groups that I had run through this little setup adventure that really investigated how their mentors, how all those experienced, seasoned adventurers in that room were killed. Because I had a few of them rightfully call out, hang on, how come that one arrow was able to scoot around corners and stab them right in the heart and kill them? And I said, I don't know. Maybe you should investigate that. So, as they took the secret door, they took some extra time risking danger in Drigo's trapped stronghold to find his workroom. Because, like them, he has some proficiencies with crafting supplies. He knows how to use a poisoner's kit, and he knows how to fletch his own arrows. So Drigo had used some magic materials and a lot of gold to make these special red arrows of slaying that the final touch on them was writing down the name of who they're going to kill into the haft of the arrow itself. And It just so happens if they looked very hard at his workbench, they could find one of these arrows still in the process of being made, missing that final touch. And so, two of these parties took the time, did this, and wrote Drigo's name on an arrow. And it was still difficult. They still had to get lined up. They still had to make sure he wasn't behind cover or anything. He was out in the open. Once their party members got Drigo in a good position, they were able to say something cool, fire this arrow, and kill Drigo with his most evil scheme. And boy, did that feel great for the players. And that is what you should want as a DM.
I hope this video was informational, educational, and maybe even inspirational. Would you like a familiar the next time you sit down to craft a villain? Hop on TrueSightDND.com, tell me your story and your goals as a DM so that I can help you find your solution to have your very best game next time you play with your players. I know you have it in you. I believe in you.